Hello, my name is Anshul Fernando, and I'm going to talk to you today about birdwing butterflies. The best way to start is by going and talking about the largest of all the birdwings. It's the Queen Alexandra Birdwing. Here's a shot of a collection of the Queen Alexandra Birdwings. These are both males and females. And in the center you'll see that there are two things, and those are actually the chrysalis of these birdwing butterflies. Birdwing butterflies are the world's largest butterflies, and of the world's largest butterflies, these happen to be the largest, specifically the females. The females are the ones that are the dark on your right side, and the males are the bright colorful ones. This collection is from 1967, and it comes from Papandetta in Papua New Guinea. Now, these specimens were not bred or farmed or raised. They were actually net collected by a collector. And what ended up happening is that he preserved them, and it was in a collection that was tucked away in a garage in Australia. And there was a art dealer doing purchases from different places in garage sales trying to get the best deals, and he found this collection. And what ended up happening is that he posted the video on the internet offering it to the world. And so we made an offer to him because we wanted to be able to showcase this collection as one of our centerpieces in a museum that we are planning to create. And so I flew to Australia and I picked up the collection, but the whole process was incredibly challenging, just simply because we had to get the appropriate permits. These are an endangered species. So in order for this collection to be brought into Canada, we had to have both the Australian government as well as the Canadian government authenticate that this was indeed a collection that predated when it became endangered. This species became endangered in 1984, and this collection was authenticated by an entomologist at a museum in Australia to be from 1967, and it was from that information that we were able to acquire permits to bring it into the country. These butterflies are an endangered species, and they are put on to the CITES list, which is the Convention of International Trade of Endangered Species. So that means that in order for there to be any possession from any museum, institution, or individual, there must be permits that have been authenticated by the CITES body. Where this butterfly is found in Papua New Guinea, in the flight area where they're found, they're actually quite common where they occur. However, the area that they fly in is so restricted that that's what makes them endangered. There have been plenty of documented accounts where these butterflies can be seen, dozens of them in a day, in their flight area. The unfortunate reality is that the vines that they feed on and the area that they live in is so restricted, and the pressures that are put upon them from deforestation, habitat encroachment, as well as the poaching market, it puts a lot of pressure on these species, and justifiably they've been put onto that list. The unfortunate reality is that these butterflies, because they're the largest and we have such a massive population of people in this world, it puts a huge pressure on these species. There are lots of people who would want to have the largest butterfly in the world. And in the black market, these butterflies can go for thousands of dollars each. And so when you have an impoverished person living in the forested lands where these are coming from, when they're just trying to survive, it puts an incentive in place for them to actually go and poach. It would be far more practical that if we were to try and take an initiative to preserve these species, that we actually raise them sustainably so that they can be introduced into the marketplace such that the demand is actually evaporated. It's just like how there are certain cottage industries that have been created to help alleviate the poaching for various other rare species. The reality that Papua New Guinea faces where this butterfly flies is that the water levels, the sea levels are rising, and it's projected by 2050 this sea level will rise to such an effect that it will probably encroach on the very existence of this organism. And that's a very unfortunate reality, and that might actually put even further pressure on such a precious creature. Now these butterflies, these all birdwing butterflies, they actually have a toxin in their blood. And that toxin is actually gathered from the food plant that the caterpillars eat. And that toxin prevents birds and reptiles from predating upon them. So when they're flying around high up in the rainforest canopy, rarely descending down. And so the locals, the tribal people, will often try and get the wings of the butterflies to use them as headdresses for their use in their society. And to get the butterflies down, they'll shoot them down with arrows. Back in the exploring days, the explorers, they couldn't get nets high enough to the rainforest canopy, and so they would shoot the butterflies down. And that's how these species would be able to be presented to the monarchy in England as treasures of what they have collected. So these specimens are part of the collection. The pupae are huge. You can see, compared to the size of my hand, the chrysalis, it's easily the size of my finger. And there you have it. That's a little bit of information about the Queen Alexandra Birdwing.